to open.
Redmond, Director Brenton.
Here.
Director Rogan.
Here.
Director Adamson.
Here.
Director Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, the quorum is established.
So you want to join me for the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So I have a motion to.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Just one comment. I was, the discussion, it's not a big deal, I don't care if it goes or not, but under, department matters versus board matters, I think the district boundaries and maps, so forth should be moved under board matters. But there's a department, administrative thing, it's more board focused, that was just.
I think we put it on there because really department action needs to take place as part of LAFCO annexation piece. So
No, but we're
it's
gonna
more
discuss it.
department driven.
Yeah, it's gonna
to do that.
be discussed, it just, yeah, it's not a.
All right, then maybe we can leave them where it is. So, okay, so we have a second, we have.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then all in favor?
Aye.
Consent calendar. All items approved on a single vote except those pulled for individual discussion and action. Anybody have any item they want to pull? Hearing none, I have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item 6, public comment. Any person wishing to address the board on any item that is not on the agenda may do so at this time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person.
No one online.
Anybody out there? You. Moving into item 7, report of action taken in closed session. It was the non-safety employee association agreement, memorandum of understanding between the non-safety employee association and the El Dorado County Fire Protection District. So we discussed this in the closed session and we all agree on this, so we want to take a motion to approve it.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion that we approve the MOU between the non-safety employees and the district, effective date of annexation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Before that, do we have any public comment on this item? No, speaking none. So on this one, we need a roll call, vote of all here. Not financial yet.
That's true, not yet.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No, item is approved. Time sensitive matters, item 1, 2025 fire code adoption public hearing.
So Chair, you should open the public hearing
Oh,
on
we
this
gotta
item,
open the
and
public.
then I'll defer to Chief Agansky.
Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing on this item, time sensitive matters.
So, second reading update from the fire code.
So good afternoon. This again is the second reading of the 2025 -01 ordinance adopting the 2025 California Fire Code with district local amendments. And the ordinance 2025-01 adopts the 2025 California Fire Code and incorporates the 2024 International Fire Code as described, providing district specified amendments. It also identifies sections on findings of fact, adoption with exclusions, local amendments, conflict, severability, and the effective date of publication. The ordinance 2025-01 adopts the 2025 California Fire Code and incorporates the 2024 International Fire Code and identifies exclusions. It implements local amendments such as access roads, hydrants, sprinkler, alarms, hazardous materials, and appendices B, C, and D. Tailored to district conditions. This also repeals ordinance 2022-2 to avoid conflicts. The ordinance is supported by the separately agendized resolution and adoption of findings, which was last month. And that supplies the required express findings linking each amendment to local climatic, geological, and topographical conditions. The staff recommend that the board introduce and waive the full reading, read by title only, of ordinance number 2025-01, adopting the 2025 California Fire Code by reference with the district's local amendments upon adoption, and repeals ordinance number 2022-2. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mr. Chair, if I could just interject for this one, just for the public record. We're opening the public hearing for the budget and the code adoption, and actually the report you just got from Chief Bagansky is item B. So,
Okay.
Our agenda will be, as a little board, we'll do B and then A. Misreading my packet.
Just to note that we did make the corrections that we had discussed at the last meeting. And then the only other change that was made, or there were some changes that were made in this that amended references within the text to ensure that they were they correctly referenced current documents, since all of the other codes were adopted and changed. Some of those the sections where this document refers to have been renumbered in other places. So we just wanted to make sure that it was consistent with that.
Questions on this? Any public comment on this? So is this the final reading on this, or we have to, is it the second reading we're done, or does it keep coming? This is my identification.
This would be the final if you approve.
So the ones you incorporated, those, some of the changes they requested down in Eldorado Hills that they had done, so you incorporated those.
Those are in this document.
Right. Okay. We move on to the next item. We have to vote on this?
Yeah, we have to show.
A motion to approve. Okay,
Nikki, I've got a couple comments.
okay,
So this is, don't read this as to whether I'm against or in favor. It's just, I've been dealing with a lot relative to just a simple thing as a project, multi-year thing to get some easements for these. And while I understand the pros associated with it, reduces injuries and deaths, improves the well-being of the community in general, folks, lowers costs typically for business, economic stability, fair compensation, and ultimately consumer protection as well as protection for the firefighters. Some of the cons, when I think of regulation and in a state where I'm connected with folks that are really talking about overregulation, I start to put a list together. There's increased costs, reducing choice, some excess business burdens, negative impact on the poor, and then there's an administrative burden on anyone that's trying to do something. And I'm running into that personally right now. Frankly, it's frustrating. I understand the whys. My question is what can we continue to ensure to do as an agency to ensure that we don't get into administrative burden or paralysis analysis to that balance. That's what I want to make sure we're able to continue to keep doing as the fire protection district. And so that's my comments and maybe a question there on how to be effective in the vision.
Sure. And as far as this specific ordinance goes, it is essentially a mirror of the previous ordinance that was passed 3 years ago. The only increases that were changed in this specific code ordinance were an increase of width in roadway as it related to apparatus, aerial apparatus access around buildings. So that will only apply to specific projects. So that would be usually buildings that are over 3 stories. It would trigger that requirement. So it would be largely reserved towards large apartment buildings, large commercial complexes that would require that change. One of the changes that we actually reduced and removed out of here was overhead height. So that is a restriction that we lifted. So the overhead height that we had within our ordinance said that you could not construct, or everything that you constructed had to have a vertical clearance of 15 feet. And we reduced that down to 13 feet, 6 inches, which is the state fire code requirement. We don't have any vehicles over the 13.6 height. So we don't need to have that extra wiggle room underneath buildings and porticos and things like that. So there are some things that we've changed. And we definitely will keep that in mind. Our whole idea is not to burden projects with excessive costs. It's just to correct things that we see as a challenge locally, and to assure that building is adapted for our community. And a lot of that has to do with wildfire and but also snow and other inclement weather that we encounter. Some of the other things also help us to either be aware of fires sooner, or for our firefighters to have a better chance of like locating certain things like utilities on a property. Those are things that would reduce property loss, hopefully, if because of their implementation, because of the ability of our firefighters to engage on fires more rapidly. So there are some offsets there, but I definitely am sympathetic with the desire to not create any additional legislative type of burden for people who are building with our communities.
And some of by law, by statute and code, we're bound by it. We don't get to adjust that. We make it more restrictive, but we can't go below that. So some of the, and that's what a lot of these things are, with the exception of, like she said, about the turning radius element. Everything else is pretty much cookie cutter fire code, safe for national fire code.
Yeah, and that's what I read into it. A few people had reached out to me at various events I've gone to, and I was talking to them, and I said, well, you restricted. I said, no, it's right in line with being pragmatic, being conscious, and not overly burdening anyone. And so, but I just felt it was important to hear it said from the fire marshal and to be reiterated so that we could have the potential to hear it outright. And I didn't want to say something wrong, so, yeah.
Sure, and there are certain things that within the ordinance itself, that we wrote in to give ourselves ability to have some discretion on projects. Because we don't, it's not like we're building a new hotel every year or a new, certain type of project. The way that building materials are changing, or other, again, even just local conditions as they may change, there is there's a benefit in having the ability to have a conversation with the person doing construction so that we can meet the intent of the law. And so some of what's in the ordinance gives the fire code official, how it's identified in the fire code, gives the fire code official some ability to weigh decisions and decide whether or not something would be required for a project or not.
To provide ultimate means of protection.
Yeah, and one good example of that is that the fire code itself, it requires emergency radio systems within buildings that are over a certain size or a certain type of building. And we can grant a waiver from installing that. And we generally, a lot of the projects that have that we've reviewed based off of that just conversation, we've been able to waive that requirement for them because we're able to demonstrate that there's sufficient radio signal within the building. So we'll have a third party do a study basically for them, and then use that to make our determination on it. But even that can save the project $100,000 in construction costs based off of not only having to install and purchase equipment, but then to maintain that for the life of the building. So it's just one instance of where having the ability for the fire code official to have some discretion in the matter is based off of policy and consistent interpretation of it that's one way that we can assure that the projects have a fair shot at trying to keep costs reasonable.
So we need a motion on, so is it on number 1 or 2 with that?
B.
Well, it says it 2.
Oh, so
2025.
we should have,
Oh.
we were opening these up for time sensitive
Oh, okay.
matters.
So-
And then we were to move on to the department of
Resolution.
matters, and then when we get to that departmental matter, then you close the time sensitive item, and then we do the motion.
Okay, so
So we have to close the time sensitive.
we have to close the time sensitive matters section and then move on to departmental matters.
Right,
So we're gonna do, so that's A there.
You're on B,
This
right?
Oh, on B, I'm sorry, B.
Yeah.
So we need a motion to, approve ordinance 2025-01, 2025 fire code adoption, second reading.
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor? It's just the ordinance, it's not. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so that passes.
Thank you.
Now we need to close the public hearing for the
Close the public hearing.
budget and move on back to parliament.
Okay, we'll close the time sensitive matters on the resolution 2025-13, fiscal year 2025-26.
Yep. So this is our final year, and I have copies. I'll turn it over to Chief Dutch.
You're the one that included DSP, right? Yeah, so this is, just has that piece pulled out.
Okay.
And then in front of you guys have the final 25-26 budget that Chief Cordero just passed out. I do apologize for you not receiving it electronically. There was some miscommunication between Michael O and I. He's trying to close out the 24-25 budget and he wants to present it to you in October. And we felt like we would do both, but we kind of got the dates confused. So that's why I didn't come to you guys electronically. So I do apologize for that. There's not a whole lot of things that you guys will have to reference and or vote on this. Is just reconciling the preliminary numbers with the final numbers. So if I can draw your attention to the asset revenue statement on page 1, at the very top of the revenue streams, we have secured property taxes, which is our primary concern as far as what we're doing year to year on a per annum growth. So one of the things that Michael O is going to be talking to you guys about is where we came in at on 24-25. Initially, we had to readjust down to 2.6. That is fleshing out to be about 3% at 24-25. And so what you guys see at 25-26 is also consistent with that. It's about 2.9%. So it's still less than where we were trending post-COVID for about 4 years, but a little bit higher than the county had given us. So not ideal, but still a little bit higher. So the difference there between the preliminary and the final is 229,000. But as you can see, if you scroll down to 0140, which is about a third of the page, we have a delta of 75K in comparison to where we're at on the preliminary. So those are the supplemental taxes. And so that could be anything from any type of waiver that the county auditor gives to certain properties and or adjusting down. Let's say hypothetically, there was a gymnasium of 30,000 square feet that he added in 24-25 and 25-26, maybe he just added a 15,000 square foot deck. So they adjust down for that. So those are one-time adjustments on that. And that's why you see a 75K delta on that one. On the state mandated reimbursement, if you guys had the opportunity to scroll through the workbook of the conceptual Diamond and County Fire budget side by side, you guys saw that last tab of strike team revenue on that. So, this has kind of been an ongoing conversation in our department. As long as I've been involved with the budget process, the numbers that we see look very large, but we can't really balance out that budget until everything clears in the overtime cost. So that has to be vacation leave, sick leave, and FMLA and workers' comp utilization. So as an example, in 24-25, we net about $1 million in strike team revenue, but the total capture on that's about 170K, so roughly 17% on that. So what we get, because we have to pay out overtime costs for the resources going out, but we also have FMLA utilization, workers' comp, sick and vacation that come from the same strike team budget. So even though it's a large, revenue stream coming in, the total net on our part is about 17% of that. And obviously this year has been historically low comparatively speaking. So What I'm assuming there on the strike team reimbursements is 90K for us on the revenue side for that this year, which is roughly half of what we got last year. So we'll see. We still have pre-positioning scenarios where we could get some revenues coming in throughout the winter time as well, but right now it does seem to be a downward trend on the strike team revenues. Really nothing else that we have going on there. Excuse me, I misspoke. So a little bit of an increase that we're seeing on the first responder recovery, which is good there. But when you look at them in comparison, this fiscal year 25-26 final is actually coming in about 37K short of where it was at preliminary, primarily due to the adjustments on the strike team revenue.
Question on the strike team revenue. When was the last time we negotiated our OES rate?
Our admin rate,
Yeah,
we do that annually.
just so annually we
Yeah,
look at
every
that.
spring, like, on the phone. Where it's 23.8.
I think that's what we came to, yeah.
We kind of live between like 19 to 29%.
Compared to another district in the county.
40 something.
Yes, I was just wondering if that's another avenue that we can increase or with, like these MOUs that come in and if we raise it, that's calculated.
That will adjust those numbers.
So they look at our wage survey.
Yeah, we plug all that data into their worksheet that spits out the percent. This worksheet.
And then once we get those deputy chief positions, we're gonna add that in there so it brings that percentage up for us.
It's interesting because some things that you would think, oh, that's gonna bump it up, doesn't necessarily.
Really?
Down. It's a weird. Your indirect and direct costs.
So is that all you had?
Yeah, it's just making sure that we're getting every bit we can out of it. It's a slow fire season, but busy fire seasons, that could definitely bring in pretty good income for us for sure.
Not to deny you guys your fiscal responsibilities of looking through the rest of the budget, but there was no adjustments in 4,000, 5,000 or 6,000 compared to the preliminary. So if you take my word for that, I kind of want to draw your attention back to class 3,000. At the preliminary, I don't know if you guys recall or not, so the quasi negotiations that took place due to the LAFCO requirements to bring both MOUs into alignment. I had imputed those costs into the preliminary. My justification behind it is that whatever you would see once it was triggered, it's going to be negligible in the grand scheme of the budget. There's not going to be a tremendous savings. But to clearly illustrate where you guys are at in total surplus, I backed those out for the final. So that's why you see the adjustments of being a little bit less in the class 3,000 salaries. And then the same thing, the biggest part of that, I think Director Hogan and Director Edmondson can attest to, is that the biggest cost of those quasi negotiations were the sick leave balances. So you can see half of that coming back there on class 3,002. To Director Brunton's earlier point about the deputy chiefs and everything like that, the temporary DC backfill that are in there right now for Captain Anderson and Captain Lemos, those are in there, and then I'm in there until November, so that's I'm included in there as well. And everything is backed off after that, so I would assume that after that process has commenced, that shortly afterwards there would be actual movement in there, and then they would go from 9 chief officers down to 7. But all that's accounted in there, so you can see that adjustment down 52,000. So no changes in retirement or FLSA or anything like that. So the difference is 77,000. There was some movement on the district just as far as employees coming on and off the books on healthcare. So that reduced those costs down to 60K. That's subject to change depending on when people get married and or have kids. But for the time being at the final, that was adjusted down as well on there. So the total class 3,000 adjustment down is $137,000. And then if you guys go back to financial summary, which should be your page 2, that's showing the total revenues, which includes the drawdown from Station 28 fund at $15,517,000, expenditures at $15,316,000 with a surplus of $201,000. That surplus obviously is subject to change depending on what the rest of the fire season looks like and or any pre-positioning that happens throughout the fall and winter time. But that's essentially where it's at. So very comparable to where the conceptual was at with County Fire and Diamond Springs on that as well. And like I said, if you take my word for it and you trust me, there was no changes to the class 4,000, 5,000, or 6,000 in comparison to what was submitted to you guys during the preliminary process.
Do we think for the annual allocation towards emergency vehicle replacement is 400,000, but we know the costs are increasing dramatically, and not enough.
Yeah, there is some conversation at the staff level, just looking at, you know, is there a way to rotate some of the stock throughout the district? And or is there a way to potentially deploy other resources as opposed to having to deploy a type 1 engine? And those are being vetted out right now. I think there are some things now, whether or not that provides, you know, the savings that we're looking for. I think it's still a little bit too early to determine that, but that is not lost on us, you know, acknowledging that, but there's obviously, you know, labor tension is very real within the department. And so there's some labor market realities out there as well.
Looking at the expenditure versus the budget revenue, it appears we have a plus of almost $238,000 plus in the budget, correct?
On the revenue,
But when I subtract expenses from revenue, we have a surplus of roughly $238,000.
I'm showing 201.
12
So I subtracted 15,316,201 from 15,541,996.
I have 15,517 minus 15,316.
That's the revised number. And the first page are 15,217. 15,517.
So I'm just total budget, total. These two are 238.
Are you looking at the preliminary or the final, Director Gilchrist?
Eldora County Financial Summary fiscal year 25/26.
If you go back to the asset revenue side, so the second column is the final, so that's 15,517. And then my expenditures at 15,316. So that leaves with a surplus of 201,000.
Okay, so I guess, not to be labor, I guess when I look on the second page, the total budget for fiscal year 2025 on the revenue side, and the total expenditures, and I do a subtraction from there, I got 238.
15,517 minus 15,316.
No, what it says in the total, that the top there.
Yeah, so that's what the county is going to adopt. They're going to adopt the total revenue for the agency. That's what they're gonna adopt.
So I'm not connecting the dots.
The total budget. Oh, I see what you're saying. I see, my bad. Yes, it should be 15,517. You're correct. I'm wrong on that one. I apologize. So that is a typo on the total budget adopted. It's 15,517, 208. Thank you, Director Gilchrist. That makes sense, gentlemen? So the line number 6 on the financial summary. So it's 15,517 to reflect line number 3. That's what they're gonna adopt. They're gonna adopt the total there. So the surplus is 201. Same page?
Right, we're insane.
Okay, thank you for catching that. My bad. So I will email this updated one to Kathleen to submit to the budget. So good catch there, Director Gilchrist. Any other questions, gentlemen? Before I step down, you guys are aware that I'm working with a gentleman by the name of Ken Campos, and I'm creating a SharePoint file. I don't know if you guys are familiar with SharePoint. So he, Michael O, and I are having ongoing communication right now. So there'll be a SharePoint file that all of the board will have access to as well. So it'll have all the fiscal documentation for the turnover. So there'll be a resource bank there for you guys, and it will have everything from correspondence to the JPA, everything that's going on with the budget, you know, all the accounting for annual costing and everything like that. So it'll probably be about a 12 to 15, you know, document file that you guys will have access to as well on that. So when you guys see that email coming through, that's what that's for.
And Chief, did the finance committee for the JPA meet to adopt how the UAL is being allocated?
Yes, and I got cocky because I went in, I was like, cool, this is my last JPA meeting. They said, we need one more meeting. So that meeting is coming up in October. And so the language is still conceptually being wrinkled out there. What the hiccup with that is that El Dorado Hills charges for OPEB. We're on a pay-go, meaning we're not funding it. And so OPEB is not funded the same way that a UAL is funded. The UAL breaks apart classics and PEPROS because you have two different demographic pools, and OPEB has both actives and classics in there. So we had to write it in a way so that former, you know, future board members would be able to understand and say, well, wait a minute, why are you doing one for OPEB but two for pensions? So we had to craft the language for that. So that's, you know, the goal is that in October, that will be tied, those loose ends will be tied up.
And that may attach to the transporting agencies contracts.
The historical staffing ratios, but we'll see. I think you guys or your successors are gonna have ongoing conversations with that, because there's conversations now about potentially agencies wanting to hand their ambulances back to the JPA, and the JPA does a hiring as well, which is gonna create a storm regarding who those liabilities actually belong to if they do that. So I would anticipate these conversations, irrespective of what you capture in language, will be ongoing for you guys.
So, just a clarification, so you're saying the 15,555 is the budget that the county has?
Yeah, so when I submit it to the county, or when I give it to Kathleen to submit to the county, I should say, they don't adopt the expenditures, they adopt the total revenue on that. So that's what we send them. We don't send them the expenditures, we send them the total revenue. So any movement beneath that, as long as we're beneath it, we're good to go. They'll call you guys, or they'll send an email to Chief Cordero if you guys are over in any area, and then you guys would have to do a board resolution. But as long as you're beneath the projected revenues, you guys are good to go then.
The second column is what you're saying, that's what it looks like with the adjustments. The 15,517 is what you're saying, adjusting the preliminary budget that we're giving to the county, what's going in, but this is more accurate, a 15,517.
Yeah, it reflects the final ad valorem and everything like
Right,
that.
so, and that's why we ended up with 201. Okay. I'm over that.
Thanks, Chief Dutch, I'm happy with this.
Yeah, and you guys saw, there's between both agencies, you guys are in a good spot. You know, you've got health reserves, you've got some surplus in there, and anything else that comes your way is icing on the cake, so.
Thank you.
So we need a motion to approve the fiscal resolution 2025-13 fiscal year 2025-2026 final budget.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to add to that motion an adjustment you gave to, because the amendment reflects that 554, or it should be 55.
With the adjustment for the preliminary budget of 15,594.
Being revised to 15,517.
20.
Yeah, or 220. Yep.
Motion.
I'll make that motion.
Mouthful.
Second.
Okay, Director Kreisman,
Aye.
Director Brennan.
Aye.
Director Rogan.
Aye.
Director Anderson.
Aye.
Director Gilchrist.
Aye.
Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item C, administrative board composition and official boundary post annexation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As part of the annexation process, one of the required items is the establishment of the board of directors composition following annexation. The boards from Diamond Springs and County Fire have directed staff to increase the current County Fire board from 5 members to 7 members post annexation. The 2 additional board seats will be filled by current Diamond Springs board members at the discretion of Diamond Springs board. To support the change, staff has been working with the county to develop a new divisional map to reflect the expanded 7-member board. The proposed map incorporates the DSP district boundaries into the EFC boundaries with the creation of 2 new divisions. State requirements mandate population balances across divisions with variance not to exceed 10%. The proposed map achieves this requirement with an estimated variance of only 4.21% between divisions. The boundaries also capture recognizable general areas and communities within the district. And I did print out for the board larger maps. So you go see the first, map on there, that is our current Eldorado County 5-person board member, divisions with the population kind of associated with those. The top one is our current, if you go to page 2, the one that says draft on it, that's one that, staff is recommending. This has been approved by the Diamond Springs Board as well. And down at the bottom, you'll see, the county's provided us those estimated counts on what the populations are, and that's where you see the variance of about 4.21%. There are other maps that are behind this, which we didn't, as Chip Geller and I kind of went through it, it really kind of chopped up, in our opinion, some of the, like Shingle Springs got kind of chopped up, and some of the areas really got, it just wasn't as clean. When we look at the one that we're recommending proposing the board, for Division 1, which is Director Brunton's area, it kind of retracts it back a little bit, because you kind of, in the original wrap around quite a bit past Placerville in that area. So it kind of pulls that area back, which makes sense, what we represent. District 2, which is, Director Kaiserman, it just goes outside the city limits a little bit in a couple of areas, and mainly that's because we have to capture some votes. District 3 for, Director Edmiston, really that kind of Sly Park, road below the lake. It's kind of really the biggest piece that you miss out on with that population, which then rolls into Director Ogan's with the Pleasant Valley, to get the numbers balanced out there. But then Director Ogan he only goes to, Bucks Bar. So that west end of his gets carved off and goes into District 5. District 5, you can see it's kind of a larger area, but as you get out South 49, there's just not a lot of population out there. So geographically, it kind of looks like Division 1, which is a big geographic area, not a lot of population. 6, which is will be Director Gilchrist, is that Shingle Springs area, which kind of goes, Station 28, that north side of 50 with Shingle Springs, and all of that south side. And then the new one, District 7, is that north side of, Highway 50 primarily. It does capture part of that twin mother lode and Highway 50 for kind of that northern side of the Diamond Springs area. We kind of cross-check where all of our board members are located, and so they're good. We made a slight adjustment for this one at the county level to make sure that Director Ogan retained there. We're like, oh yeah, we're good. And it was like, oh, we need to move that line.
We have the Director Forward that one time.
Yeah, so.
They're on the wrong side of the street.
He was on the wrong side of the
Yeah.
street. So crazy.
So that's this again is a recommendation. There are some other ones you can look at, but I think kind of for the reasons that we discussed, it's kind of why we're recommending this one. It does a really good job trying to keep the communities largely intact and not augmenting. The challenge we had is that our board, if you go back to that covering, you guys, all your divisions kind of go in that 11,000 range. And now they're coming down to in the 10,000, because when we add the 2, there's about 16,000 in Diamond Springs district. So that's where kind of pull from some others get, drop a little bit.
So the, new District 6 and 7 are current Diamond Spring board members, is it live within those, or? So,
Yeah.
okay.
The two that are gonna come on board.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure how that was.
Well, there was two that we're talking about, they lived like across the street from each other kind of thing, so we've been. So they have one that lives on South 49 and the other one lives north of 50 off Missouri Flat Green Valley.
So who divided these up? Was it the county? Who was
The
it?
county, Jennifer Carlton, who works in their GIS, she is amazing. Yeah, Chief Gallagher, I met with her, kind of just, hey, this is what we need, and, I don't know, 3 weeks later or a month later, like, here you go. So she gave us the options, and then we made the adjustment to the one that we're recommending to move forward.
So any other board comments regarding that?
I've got a few. And this goes back to the last time we did the redrawing and, talked with the precinct analyst that was in the elections department, and he provided me some insight on consolidating voting precincts, managing street guides, tracking annexation, board exchange, demographic information, so forth. And then he also talked about the, California Citizens Redistricting Commission map criterion. I think, be a people population for the Constitution, uphold principle of one person, one vote, i.e. Supreme Court Reynolds versus Sims, comply with Voting Rights Act to protect minority representation, be contiguous. If you remember on the contiguous one, I had a problem with part of my district not being per division. That was the other thing. I think in the map it says district, it should say division. So, but I did have a problem, accepted it, but I still was concerned that Cold Springs was not physically attached to Shingle Springs in the original. It was separated out. Now everything's contiguous, which I think is good. Be geographically compact, and then make sure you minimize division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, communities of interest, and making sure those stay intact. And so when I was looking at all of that, I really dove into this because some other things I'm doing, and then the other one was a 14-day public notification as to the maps and where it was going. So I'm not sure we've met that criteria, to be able to vote on this to go forward. But, I did some comparison of the numbers, and to Chief Cordero's point, when I looked at Division 7, it's got 11,495. And if I look at some of the others, there's significant gaps in 11% variance, plus 9%, plus 13%. So I started playing with some numbers, create a little spreadsheet, and said if we took if we subtracted 850 from Division 7 and add 600 to Division 6 and add 225 to Division 5, the percentage variances then come in per district as a separation from each other. Moving down at a high of 13, you go to 2.7, minus 0.12, which is actually 0.2 here on that formula. 0.15, 2.2, 2.7, and 1.0 variance, which brings the aggregate variance to less than 1%. And I think if we push back, challenge, I think we can have a very balanced division map. And I don't think it puts us at risk with all the, I'm not saying this is here, that this is being done. I want to make sure that voters don't feel their vote has been diluted, because I have the least amount, which their vote carries my vote technically, even though it's all would be 7, but I'm representing fewer electorate or voters. Therefore, they have somewhat more of a say, even though it comes to one vote. And they talk about that in the Supreme Court, about dilution of votes. And I think if we look at this a little bit differently, it maintains the communities. It brings it to within a very tight amount of votes. It almost comes back to the original structure of the voter separation that we had in R5. And then when you look at it again, I did some more history, it looks like all the map, it ties to all the original, almost identically to all the original independent fire districts 30 years ago. It really lines up with that and maintains that community from a division perspective. And so I think that's a approach, and I've got some ideas I'd like to work offline. I've spent quite a few hours on this, analyzing it, and I am a data guy, and I think we could get it to where the 7 are pretty much representative of what each individual one was back to 30 years. So those are my comments.
So let me ask, they've already approved this in Diamond Springs, correct? But we have, I mean,
It is. Yes, there's the Elrod County Fire District Board is ultimately. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because it's gonna be our board.
our board, yeah, right?
So the variance difference has to be less than 10%? Because we're not in that 10% now. We do 10,038 times 10%, that's 1,004 or something like that. And District 7 is, we have a 1,400, basically a 1,400 difference between the lowest one and the highest, right? It's like about 12%. So if we adopt this, we wouldn't be adopting one, something that would be within the parameters, I think. Right. That's correct, if I'm reading it right.
We can have some adjustment. It looks like she did an average. The standard deviation, percentage of that deviation. So. Just looking at our current, the spread between the high and low is 1,000. So.
Yeah, right. 1,400, basically.
Yeah, so that's the one that was the outlier. And when I looked at the map, take it a little further, the north end of the current division, I have, if there are 500 that, or whatever the number was I said, that are put into that puts it virtually identical on the north end. The south end, part of the south end went into Division 5. But the original Shingle Springs division is almost identical to where it was. And then when I look at District 7 and District 5 for Shingle Springs, they maintain, or not, for Diamond Springs, they maintain their original district outline. And I think it solves that problem to be within, I think the max 2.75% variance within the voters. And I think it presents it strengthens any legal position for the district, especially with what's going on at the state level with redistricting. I don't even want to get close to anything that could be perceived as something that came that way.
Well, just bear in mind, when you look at our current mapping, our divisions range between 10,000, 11,000. Those numbers. Diamond's roughly 16,000, which would be about 8,000 per division. So you're going to have to peel the numbers back to get the balance.
Yeah, so when I did the variance on ours, and it was 981, when I compared to their greatest size division, Division 3, Division 1 to Division 3, Division 3 is 733 higher, 2 to 3, 3 is 981 higher, 3 to 3 equal, 4 to 3, 352, 5 to 3, 677. And when I was doing the math on this, just the numbers I was plugging, it pulls these variances to 291, 13, 165, 236, 296, 107. It really gets it tight and close, so you don't even have 1,000, you're less than, I think the highest variance is 291. And so I think this really positions to say, it puts the district in a strong position that it satisfies every single every requirement put forth by the California Commission or Citizens Commission redistricting. It really aligns it for a strengthy point of view.
She's got her hand, go back and we'll work with Jennifer a little bit more. Just bear in mind, they can't move 503. Grab those blocks, and some blocks have 5 people and some smaller blocks have 387 people. So.
Right, I mean, it's a polygon, right? It's a polygon, and what is it? I think it's
Voter
segments of age.
census forms.
Yeah, I get it. And I was just using ballpark numbers to get that together.
We'll work on that and bring that back to the board.
Well, so two questions I guess I have on that. One is, if we delay this to the next board meeting, what's that do to the whole APCO process? Delay that?
Just have that settled.
This is something that just needs to be done prior to the end of the annexation.
I also think if we wait till the next board meeting, it fully satisfies the 14-day notification period. Because it, with any adjustments, to get that out, publish it, and it'd be 14 days before anything is done, you could accept feedback. And then that satisfies that criteria as well.
Do you have to publish it, or you have to?
Technically, what you're supposed to do is you come up with your draft maps,
Right.
and I propose this draft and then a revised one, chief, that you got, that you and Chief Gallagher are gonna work on. Those would be the two drafts. And then say, we're inviting public comment, and it's 14 days ahead of. Take it, and whatever public comments provided, read it, and then the board would discuss it, and we'd satisfy the 14-day requirement. And I think it tightens us all up with the others so that it's as clean as a whistle, puts it in really good shape.
I agree. I think everybody's on board with that. Let's follow the rules. So I put somebody back and saying, since we've done everything else correctly, let's.
Chief, and I'm willing to spend some time with you guys to kind of break it down if you want, or a little bit more of what I did.
We can get that. I mean, I've got the intent is to get those numbers and where we can pull us a little better.
Okay, I can email you a copy of what I got drafted.
So we're going to do whatever.
We'll just keep it until then.
Yeah. And then I think we're saying also, whatever they come up with, they should, it's gonna be more level, publish that 14 days before. meeting. Committee reports, budget and finance, there was no meeting. But we did get the monthly review year to date, and according to from Chief Dutch, and we're compliant in all areas. And he explained why we pay, because we pay something to the upfront and not in relocating, sorry, in comparison to the budget. These are just costs, but we haven't gotten any revenue. Communication.
We did not meet, however, we have a tentative, I was hoping Chief Dutch would be here for it. Director Brunt and I need to have a request to have time with Chief Dutch to review our bullet points for the community education campaign. He's been tied up with Ken.
Well, that's good.
And the report.
Okay. JPA. I attended the last meeting, they put out the RFP. And there was some discussions on that, they clarified it at the meeting, and they're making an adjustment to it. I guess everyone has to get it in by when, December?
December
15th or December.
15th.
It was interesting,
And we're anticipating just 2 RFPs or 3?
probably two.
So,
And so the geographic area that was discussed was the west end of Highway 50 corridor. There was a bunch of discussion on that. Wow.
that's where it is.
That's where it needs to
It's
be.
on the corner. That's the border on the west side.
But when we fill out that RFP, which we're gonna do, can we specify where we're gonna put it? Can we say, hey, we're gonna house this in Cameron Park? Or something like that.
We would include probably some options. You have to meet that criteria.
You have to say where you're gonna house it.
Well, the criteria in the RFP is that it has to be in the west or And that was what triggered some of the conversation is the core by JPA policy is classical diamond and mosquito. So obviously, we as a JPA don't want mosquito. The core or the west is Elroy Hills Camp Park Rescue. So that's where there's a lot of discussion there. That town. We used to really be good.
Anything else to say about the JPA?
Should be releasing the flyer for the EMS officer position shortly, which would be internal and external. So really like a EMS supervisor type position, but it's being called EMS officer. That's assistant, a higher level assistant to person.
And that would be reporting, in the fire service side, not the JPA side, correct, is where that decision is read?
It'll be open internally and externally, so internally, we could potentially have one of our members that goes in, and those that roll under a contract, they would remain a county fire employee, but they would have an assignment for 12 or 24 months. Instead of going to pick a station, they report to and work at it. As county fire.
Oh, okay, similar to Chief Lumenthal, when he was
Exactly.
going to, yeah, okay.
If they hire from the outside, they would just be a JPA hired employee. that works for
We don't want. Is there, so I'm thinking it needs to be fire-based, and if you're having an officer that's somewhat oversight, why wouldn't that officer be in the fire service?
The ambulances, it's a fire-based EMS system, so the ambulances are fire-based, they're housed by the employees of the fire department, all of that. The administration of the JPA is not fire-based.
So they have no, supervisory type responsibility over the paramedics, that would still remain with the district.
Correct.
Okay.
But there was a major discussion on that, because they were talking about the JPA hiring some EMTs or paramedics or both combinations to set up a day car possibly and fill in, but then the issue came up is we have to first figure out legally, can they have that, if it's gotta be fire-based? So they're gonna decide that, and then if it's true, they might wanna set up, this could be years, as an alternative in case something crashes. You know, when somebody gives up an ambulance unexpectedly, you have a group that can put in there with a day car or something.
From JPA employees?
Yeah.
The challenge is, and Christie pointed out, if you go into service area 3, up in the west, or in the east slope of the Tahoe Basin, they're not required to be fire-based. There's a county service area 3 for ambulances. 2 of their ambulances are JPA employees, the 3rd ambulance is Lake Valley Fire employees. The JP up there that staffs 2 ambulances, basically the private ambulance model that's what it is.
Right.
Their attrition rate is 80%.
80%. You're just constantly.
Because, I mean,
Yeah.
so it would be the same.
Was there any indication of the contract stays an employee that is contracted to JPA? Was there any, did it seem like there was one way or the other was leaning
For
being employee of JPA
No.
or being employee that in this contract?
the EMS officer.
Yeah.
I think it's being open to both, just. You may not have anybody from internally that puts in forward from any of the fire districts. Or you may have 1 or 2, and maybe there's somebody outside that's better. So,
I got a whole bunch of things running through my head, debate to support why it should be an employee of, say, said district with a contract.
I mean, that would be ideal because they're familiar with our system and all those type of things, but. You need to have a qualified person that can do that and is willing. So,
Do we still have the that was a state OES still with us?
we have to.
Two of them.
gonna be working on that,
Software
RFP.
qualifications, right, okay.
We'll have the old RFP adjusted.
Yeah, there's a couple of names kind of might have. That Steve Sarine guy that came in and basically tried to blow up the entire system and create an AMR type system. You know, I probably remember that guy. You know, on paper, it was like, man, we're getting a hot, we're getting an awesome guy come in here and run the system. And he about argued, and there was even some speculation that his strong ties with AMR, that it was a plan or intentionally to blow up the system and make it, exactly so. But, you know, on the flip side, you could also find some rock star person that has, you know, strong understanding, just has some on our system.
I'm curious about the administration piece of the JPA not being fire-based. Is that based on JPA policy?
I do not believe there's any policy on it. I think it's historical. Right now. They had Tony Corrado as interim JPA executive director. 6 or 8 months. I think he's probably the only fire base.
Well, then,
Brian.
Is Brian,
Not very-
But he wasn't.
it wasn't active.
It was an
Has the original ballot language ever been found?
Oh, yeah.
So,
But it hasn't been challenged.
That's
That's
a
a fire base. What's the definition of fire base?
Right.
That's the question.
no, got it, with you,
That's
but I'm
the-
just saying for the officer administrator, is it something to be challenged?
Well, that's the only reason I asked that question about the policy for the JPA, because I went through that language pretty in depth 5 years ago, and with an attorney actually. And it would be an interesting discussion, like you said, it hasn't been tested, but it would be an interesting discussion about whether any part of the JPA is exempt from fire-based. I would say that's the blank.
That we can
I
say.
think the
I'm not
biggest
gonna-
piece
I'm not gonna
of
weigh
was
in on that.
the
I guess-
intent,
I'm just gonna say,
voter intent.
the vote, yeah, that's what I would say. I would say, based on the voter intent, the JPA was supposed to be fire-based.
And I guess my position would be, I would say the voter intent would be that the ambulances are being run by fire.
It's interesting.
Perhaps.
Where did you get the
And
copy of the language?
We have enough office.
Give us some, just for, get a copy of that, on one of the vehicles, I wanna look at it.
What is the original?
It's pretty
ballot?
generic.
Pardon me?
It's pretty generic.
Yeah, oh, it is? Pardon me?
Is that, you have the original ballot number? Okay, I'd like
Yeah,
to
it's
see
just
it
a
too.
little,
Yeah, just like,
yeah, it's pretty generic.
it's straightforward. The intent was the.
Well, yeah, it's interesting when you talk to citizens who have been around the county for a while, right? And you've asked them what they think that means. Right? The fire service runs the ambulance program. Period. That's what most of them think. That's what most of them think, and they don't realize that there is a separation. In fact, most of them don't even realize the county's involved there. Right? And a lot of people at public meetings are, when you give them the education piece of it, they're quite surprised that the county's involved. So,
I mean, all that money that gets collected by taxes doesn't go directly to it.
that's it. That's the piece.
That's the big piece.
That's,
And that is an educational piece. I know, talking with friends and stuff. Wow, you know, why you guys having troubles with it, money? Well, we clean that up, explain it well, but we paid. Whatever it is, well, guess what? Levels of bureaucracy in there, and that money doesn't go directly to really where it should be. That was, I think, again, 10.
I think at least with the historic residents who were here during that timeframe, that's been my experience. My experience, when you meet with community groups and those people are in the meeting, it's almost unanimous that their viewpoint of what fire-based delivery, what they thought they were voting on and what is actually exists are two different things.
Chief, when you look at the job description, what rank would it transfer over to, like a captain level or?
The description would probably be a captain level. Along with it, I forget the salary range, it's on there, it's available for the contractors. I think it's in the 130s.
So the salary range would be within captain level too?
I recall a year or two ago when Chrissy left, there was an issue associated with benefits. If this person's brought into the JPA, are they considering or if there's been discussion about benefit package?
If they're coming internally, like one of our employees, they would stay as a county fire employee, they'd get a paycheck from county fire, their benefits from county fire. The district would be getting reimbursed by the JPA, whatever that agreed upon amounts for that position. So nothing changes on the employee other than where they go to work at.
Okay, good. If they're not, the other scenario occurs.
If it's an outside, there is a benefit structure, they're not CalPERS. There's a stipend for healthcare, a stipend for retirement for.
I guess what I'm leading to is, if it's fire-based, we're used to kind of like, if you report to such a person, what's their rank, so you kind of know where everybody's statute is in the pecking order. You know, so if it's a captain, your firefighters, okay, but if it's firefighters on a medic and you're working for a firefighter supervisor, it's a little muddier, you know, as far as like.
They would be functioning under the JPA, so that position would actually report to Kristen. So you wouldn't have, because if you had hypothetically a person from Garden Valley that fills that role, they don't supervise and manage our others. They report to Christie. There's a higher dissemination policy and stuff.
Okay, should we move on to the ad hoc committees, facilities and equipment?
I don't have any. And then I guess once we figure out deputy chiefs, where, and, are you gonna, at that point, officially decide who's doing facilities and who's doing apparatus for the annex?
We've had that discussion at staff meeting levels where once it all shakes out, that, you know, we'll probably have most of the day outlined, doing everything. We'll take more staff meetings. Did the out assignments, who's what, get that stuff all ironed out. There's some temporary stuff.
Or I brought up, when we're looking at budget, with apparatus. And I think that's something is, after we two were diving in and understanding the district and where we're at, is sitting down with that individual, I think maybe working on a strategic plan for our apparatus purchases, so that in that particular case, we have sufficient money that we're setting aside, projections as to interest and all that good stuff, or adjust down just about what we need to do. And I think the same for facilities is, especially, you know, current facilities in this district, but also once time comes in, some of the improvements that probably take place in some of their facility. Just have a, you know, at least for those two items as the strategic plan, so that kind of, that we can all budget appropriately.
I don't know, it's really important that we're reserving enough. That's really critical, especially with engine prices skyrocketing every time you go out and buy.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months. Did you just see the congressional hearing they had on that?
And what are they saying?
There's a congressional hearing that just occurred on the crisis within fire apparatus of time and exponential cost increases in the last 5 years.
All right.
The other one that I thought was interesting along those lines is Congressman Kylie sponsored a bill that was passed and signed into law that mixed the California law that said you shall not be able to purchase combustible engine vehicles. It got shot down and overridden by the federal level it's saying California, you can't do that in this law. And so that in and of itself, I think would provide some help. Forget
Well,
the
you
bill
know,
number.
we're gonna let you start. Go over
It would go well be electric buses are working.
Yeah.
School districts shut down because they went that whole route and those buses are all breaking.
Right.
Can't have fires breaking down like that.
It'll just be interesting to see what happens.
Oh, I'm sure, well. Here's the timeframe again. What,
Well, there's basically only three parent companies for the apparatus manufacturers in the country anymore. They've all been cooperations.
Consolidated.
And so now the question comes down to trade, fair trade kind of stuff, and is there, are we reaching a confidence? Yeah. That's what we're-
Yeah, because, right, there are the manufacturers that there used to be.
Okay, fine, that's it.
That one.
Oh,
Yeah, the home really good, but that's why it's strong.
Well, it used to be a lot, I mean, when I first went to work in Sacramento, we had 17 different manufacturers.
Oh my gosh.
Fire apparatus.
Your mechanics.
And it is nice to have one manufacturer, but the problem with that is if we get that nationwide, we're seeing what we're seeing right now.
For reference, it's the Congressional Review Act resolution for the University of California's upcoming ban on gas powered vehicles. Signed into law by President Trump, Thursday, 11, anyone, so.
Okay, human resources?
We already did that.
We did that one.
Okay, last session, right?
VSP, ECF annexation board.
At our last working group meeting, which was September 3rd, we provided an update to the LAFCO process. Chief Gallagher and I were both notified today that the county is using the 30-day extension on our negotiation piece, so that will push that out. They were going to be, they got engaged late in the game, they were gonna have struggle to actually make September 30th. So more to come on that. But we did talk about the county negotiations that has taken place. Chief Gallagher and I met with county staff. Say it was a good meeting. Our position really was understanding that the position the county's in right now, but the years of them wanting to see this and like you need to send a message. And there was discussion about what about this department. That's what we're talking about. You have to incentivize, get the attention of the elected officials. So I'm still not overly optimistic. We haven't heard where they landed. They're gonna take that back to their group. We had an update on the MOUs. Those are all squared away now. Talk about the fleet a little bit, talk about the board division mapping. Gave an update to Ken Campbell, our financial consultant. An update on the deputy chief testing process, and then gave it out to Chief Gallagher. I met with the Taxpayers Association on the 11th. Those folks. Our next meeting will be October. We'll have 2 more of these left to go. Oh,
To get shorter.
yeah, they've gone from 2 or 3 hour meetings down to 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
It was kind of a recap, so. But I think it's important to keep it going. Just in case something comes up, we're gonna try to reconvene, like, just staying on up there.
I agree with that. That's better to keep the flow going on that one, till it ends. Okay, correspondence and communications.
We did not receive any, I have to roll the engine med stats.
Yeah.
In your packet, you'll see the stats for our engines units for the month of August. August was a busy month. Call volume was up pretty much across the board on all of our units. It was just one of those months. There was anything that stood out as, you know, some type of event that took place, just call volume was up. And all the stats are within the packet, and that will answer your questions. Stats.
Have any questions? Okay, moving on, fire chief's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the city of Placerville. staff, in our prevention bureau, they've been working with the city on the various fire gates that are located within the city. That's come up at several city council meetings, and so we're working with them on that. I don't know why they call them fire gates, because somehow implies that we require them, if we don't require them. They're putting them in, we have things they have to meet with those, but they are the fire gates, so. And then, next, Tuesday at city council, we'll be presenting a plaque to Cleve Morris, at city council meeting, recognizing his retirement and his, partnership with the district. His official retirement date is October 3rd, but next Tuesday is his last city council meeting. On the JPA,
What time are you doing that presentation? Right at the beginning?
right at the beginning, 5 o'clock. I think it's probably, they're doing a proclamation. So, she read it. JPA, as previously discussed, the RP from 9th Medic Unit has been distributed. It came out day before yesterday, closed on the 12th. We'll begin kind of having those conversations, putting that together, and then we'll bring it back to the boards. Check that out next month, but actually do we want to do this or not. As far as the district goes, we've had 3 of our PAOs that successfully completed their probation period. Brad Bennett, Brian Carey, and Josh Ledoux. Kudos to them. The deputy chief testing is scheduled for October 2nd, and we have 7 candidates that are going to go through that process. Chief Gallagher and I have requested numerous proposals from some recruitment firms for the fire chief hiring process. We'll be scheduling a meeting with the HR committee and the 2 board members that are coming over from Diamond Springs, kind of review some of those different companies. Put together a recommendation to the full board to consider at a future date. We're also looking at reviewing our copier machine contract for our stations and potentially consolidating them into the same company that Diamond's using. There's some pieces of that we're working through. With the fleet, next week we'll initiate a pilot program, which has to do with when there's certain like water rescues and remote area calls, instead of taking the engine, the crews will take what's referred to as the light rescue, which is typically a pickup truck at the station with the equipment, things they need. That'll be done at Station 17, so when they go up to Ice House, Moon Lake, and those type of things, instead of taking the engine all the way up there, they'll take like light rescue 17, and if deemed necessary, they'll have the side-by-side or the boat in tow. And then the same thing will happen at Station 49. Right now, Rescue 49 gets pumped out on those, and they go all over the county, so they'll have a light rescue they'll use. That'll be a 90-day pilot program, and we'll just kind of see feedback from the crews and see how that works. And the ultimate goal is to keep miles off of Type 1, not drive the engine all the way up to Moon Lake for, lift assist, which happens. So, we have 6 new employees that will be starting their orientation next Monday, 3 firefighter paramedics and 3 PAOs. That had us at full staffing until a day or 2 ago. Now we're down 2 again. But we're also going to be upgrading 3 of our current PAOs into the firefighter bridge program. And then Chief Dutch has interviews scheduled for the first week of October for PAOs. There's actually a couple of firefighter paramedics in there and firefighter EMTs. Chief Daniel's been working on the OTS grant for 2 sets of e-tools. We actually signed the documents for that yesterday. So there are some, with it being an OTS grant, there's some public media releases and things we have to do. Chief Daniel's working with Chief Baganski to make sure that all those requirements. Fire districts have received a Homeland Security grant, and that's fire districts countywide. For additional active shooter PPE, which has been ordered, and there's some upcoming trainings later this fall once we receive that equipment. Staff and Engineering 25 attended the City Festival employee barbecue at the city pool, and then huge kudo to firefighter Tyler Ott, who organized the Red Hawk stair climb at the casino again this year. Not only the stair climb. We've kind of been out of it for a couple of years with COVID and things like that, but you did a lot of work getting that back up and going. It was a good event, a lot of participation. Kudos to that. And report. Answer any questions.
I have any questions? I think at the last board meeting, I asked you to take a look at on lifts, picking up people. I don't know where you are on that. I don't know if they come up with.
I took a look at that and it's hard. I needed to contact ECC to how to separate those out. I'm sure they have information going through all the lists. It wasn't very many that I saw.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
It's the minimus amount, it's not worth.
and then from those, how many of those are private residents versus?
Yeah, private residents, we're not gonna charge, but it's so it's not that many. Must be a bigger issue in other cities. All right, board comments. You got it?
Yeah, two.
Go ahead.
First one, update the Fire Safe Council in the Cameron Park Shingle Springs area is going to be sponsoring another wildfire. They don't have the title figured out yet, but it's like a wildfire event where they'll do the burn simulations under various scenarios, if defensible space was there or not, and what it would look like. They're gonna be reaching out to, all the fire districts in the area to, like 3 or 4 years ago, participate in that. There's a great collaborative effort with all the partners in the area to go. And then the Shingle Springs Chamber of Commerce is having, and I don't have the date for whatever reason, it's not on my calendar, but it was. They're having a trunk or treat in the Berks Junction parking lot, which was a huge event last year. It might be something, I know there was a little bit of a mix up with this last static display, but on Halloween night, it's a Friday this year, is that right? 31st. I think it's a Friday, and it might be a really good, just those 2 points.
So I'll do a shameless plug too. So most of you know that I just recently took over as executive director of Sierra Javits. And we have a fundraiser coming up on November 7th at 5 o'clock, and I'll send out the flyers for it. There'll be a silent auction, a lot of really good stuff. But it's just a good way to support an agency that, or a group that supports all of our first responders, and probably nothing demonstrates that more than the events of the last month. And the opportunity we had to support both law enforcement and fire at a pretty good level. So it's just a really good organization that provides a lot of support directly to firefighters and the community too.
That was on the 27th.
It's on the 7th of November at 5 o'clock.
Future agenda items, the next regular scheduled board meeting is October 16th. Anything else? No. Okay, you have a motion to adjourn, or you just adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second.
Set for 4. My calendar.